Welcome, fellow farm rescue volunteers. On behalf of Bill Gross, the Board of Directors for Farm Rescue, I would like to thank you for your willingness to volunteer your time, your most precious resource, to serve other people. I would like to introduce to you this fine piece of equipment that RDO Equipment Company has provided for us, a John Deere 6175R, followed by the John Deere 569 round baler. In this, we'll be learning the safety and the operating features of this equipment. As you notice, this loader here gives us the option of coming off. However, with a bale spear on the front, we no longer have that option. A loader bucket gives you enough weight up front so the brackets can come down and counterbalance and then detach off the front. So for as long as we're going to be operating this equipment, we will leave the loader on always. The danger is if we put it on the ground and back away, it'll probably fall right back on the ground because there's not enough counterweight out front with the bucket. So please leave the loader on. If you want to drop the bale spear, if you're not going to be moving any bales for a while, that is your prerogative. It just takes two guys to kind of lift it up on with a quick catch. That's up to you. However, please make sure we leave the loader on. First things first, we're going to check the oil. Latch is released just like on all John Deere tractors up front. Push up. There's a cable in here that prevents it from rising over center. Your oil dipstick for check right down here. See the little hash marks there between the dots? Spot on. If indeed you would need to fill, your oil fill is directly above the dipstick. You look towards the back, you've got the air cleaner and you've got your coolant. This here right up front is your fuel filter. Shouldn't have any issue. Tractor was fully serviced before we got it. If for some reason you have some issue with some diesel that's kind of iffy, got some water, you got a valve on the bottom, just drop some out till you get nothing but pure fuel. As well as checking the oil, you're going to want to take a look at these two screens in front of your radiators. The front one here pops out, slides out. Take your hand, you can brush it off, tap it on the tire. If you have an air compressor, blow it out. The second one, between the two radiators, do the same with that one. If you're really needing to clean out the entire radiator every so often, you can take this little connector loose down here, pull the pin all the way out, and this front radiator comes clean out from the rear one. That way you're able to blow off both of them at the same time and clean it off. Or if you're doing a pressure wash, just be careful not to get too close where you start to flatten off the fins in between the vanes. For your coolant level, if you look over here on the right side of the tractor, you got a minimum and a maximum. As long as it's right in between there, you're good. For your air filter, you've got a lid on top, and it's a cartridge kind of rectangle air filter up in top, on top of the cold air intake. On the right side, you'll find this post for jumping. If for say your battery runs dead, right behind the red cover, hook the negative onto the frame on the inside. And this here is your windshield wiper fluid. On the left side of this particular tractor, you'll notice two ports. One for DEF, diesel exhaust fluid. The other for, of course, your standard dyed red diesel fuel. Thanks to the EPA, we have to use DEF, and it has a burn rate of about 1/10 of a gallon for every hour that you're running at full throttle. On the gauge, right next to the fuel gauge, there's also, John Deere is very wise, they put in a DEF gauge. You're only going to need to fill this once every great while. Fuel tank, I believe, if my memory right, holds about 110 gallons, somewhere in that ballpark. On the right rear corner, you're going to find the high guard transmission hydraulic fluid fill and your sight glass. You'll notice right here on the right side, it's right up above that orange reddish band. Anything in between that and the top line is good. So your transmission and your hydraulic fluid is all in one. If you per se need to add, you've got the fill that's on the rear towards the left side. As you can see, this is the John Deere 569 round baler. We'll start up at the front, work our way through how everything works, go over some safety stuff, and end at the back with a net wrap. For power, you'll notice a power takeoff. It's a 1000 RPM shaft, 4 hydraulic lines, 2 electrical lines. The 2 electrical lines cannot be confused. They each have their own receptacle. The hydraulic lines we will have labeled blue with blue, green with green, and right and left for easy replacement after unhooking for a rake or so on. When you look over here, right here we have the jack stand. This jack stand comes with a handy PTO holder. Remove it from up here, Put her down here, put the jack stand PTO holder in the upright position. You can cradle the PTO in here, unhook your pin, your safety lock, your safety chain, and then your 4 hydraulic hoses and your 2 electrical connections. As you see, the 2 hydraulics, top and bottom for 4. You got your top flashers for going down the road, and then the entire brains of the operation is carried through John Deere's cable there on the right. The powertrain schematics comes off the 1000 RPM shaft on the PTO. Comes in here, goes past the slip clutch. The slip clutch has brake pads in her, keeps it nice and tight, also allows a little bit of slippage if something was to go wrong. After the power is transferred through the slip clutch, goes into a 90-degree gearbox. This gearbox comes underneath through this shaft, comes in through the door. Shaft comes out on the left side of the baler, transfers your chain power to the top roller to power the part of the belts on the top. Also transfers down to the lower roller to power the belts on the bottom. Goes across, underneath, comes back and goes across again. We'll explain that in a little bit. For the hydraulic schematics on the 569, you've got 1 and 2 SCV. On number 1 in the cab, that powers your large cylinders on both sides, which takes your release latch, opens up the back of the baler to kick out the bale, powers also the bale kicker all in one movement. So all you need to do is just click one time in the up position for detent on SCV number 1. The 2 cylinders do all the work, open up, click it back down, bale shuts, and then ends up closing the door. For SCV number 2, you look at this cylinder here. That's powering your pickup, your floating mega wide pickup head. For adjusting the maximum down on the adjustment, you turn the crank. When you're coming on in and out of fields and going down the road, you'll obviously pull it all the way back by clicking back on the detent position on SCV number 2, which raises your floating pickup head all the way out of the way. When you're in the field, you'll drop it back down by clicking the detent number 2 all the way forward. And to adjust, if it's not quite right or conditions change throughout the day, you'll take this little lever here and adjust up and down to allow your maximum travel in the down position. Next, we'll talk about the intake of the product into the machine. Up front, you have a rolling baffle. This rolling baffle is also what adjusts your height on your floating compression rack, which rises up and down above the bands and the teeth on the pickup. After the bands and the teeth on the pickup, it's fed past into the accelerator. The accelerator pushes the product up against the belt to start making the bale. Inside that chamber, which starts out in a triangular shape, it's about a 2.5 foot tall by about a foot wide at the base triangle between the belts as they spin, obviously in opposite directions on the inside of the chamber. To prevent too much plugging and to also keep things rolling on the opposite counter shaft, you have a stuffer roller, which has got this helix welded rods onto this tube, and that turns in the opposite direction to get the bale started to roll as the product begins the process of making the bale through the core. On the accelerator, the part in the back up against the belts kind of looks like shark fins as it goes around. You'll notice on the corner, because of the mega wide option that John Deere came out with to allow you to eat up and get a lot more product in, you have these little augers on the corners. On those augers, sometimes in real wet grass or anything that starts to string up like weeds, you'll notice there's scrapers right along the top, kind of half moon cut. If it starts to build up on those augers, you'll just have to adjust those scrapers down so that it continues to clean off the top of the welds on those augers. You'll notice on the right side of the front of the 569 you have a gauge. The purpose of this gauge is to keep your bale tension. In wet conditions, you're going to want to keep a looser tension on your bale so you don't get heating and molding inside the bale. When things are really dry and the guy really wants a lot of tons per the bale, you're going to want a higher pressure. For adjusting that, you're going to come on over here. You've got a check valve in here. You can turn the lock collar loose and turn it clockwise, counterclockwise to adjust your pressure. You want to make sure you do this, however, once you have a bale. Right now the chamber is open, so we're reading a negative 0 pressure. Once you have a bale started in the chamber, you're going to want to turn this valve until you're at least at the noon to about 230 position. That's ideal for normal dry, you know, around 15%, 13, somewhere in there. If you start pushing, you know, 18% or even a little worse if you got to catch before the rain, now you're going to want to start to put this in the wet zone here really loose. Again, if you start baling hay above 15% moisture, you're going to want to be really careful where you start to put that and how tight you stack it. I would highly recommend anything above 15, you start to space them out and keep at least 6 inches around each bale to allow airflow. If you're going to start putting this hay inside a building or tight together, you're going to want to make sure that the percent moisture is well around 13 or below to prevent any hazard of a fire or mold happening. If you start pushing above 18 to 20, now you're going to have to really start feeding it fast or really count on a lot of wind and a lot of spacing in between, and just figure you're going to have some mold and some issues with spoilage. You'll notice this 569 is a mega wide floating pickup. With a floating pickup, you obviously want to keep the individual teeth off the ground. If you have hay that's down and product that's really tight to the ground, you can run those teeth, you know, a 1/4 inch off the ground. However, the higher they are, the less wear and the less problems you're going to have. But if you need to lower them so they're just skimming the ground just above to get the product, great. If you don't need to, please raise them up to save wear and tear. Also on these wheels, you have 2 pickup guide wheels that just kind of keep you riding over any low and high spots. They're adjustable with a nut on each side. Ideally, they're not going to be turning or barely just kind of on the stubble, so you're going to have about 1 inch to 1.5 inches of clearance between the wheel and the ground on perfect ideal conditions with the hay up out of the ground. Obviously, if you come around the second time and you see, boy, I'm leaving some behind, by all means, again, on the left side, turn the crank down and allow that pickup to come down. If it comes to where the wheels have to touch in order to pick the product up, the product and serving the farmer is the goal, so we need to make sure we do that. However, if we're picking the product up, we basically want to be able to pull that up and save wear and tear on the machine as much as possible by lifting it up again on the left side or adjusting. Each side has individually adjustable gauge wheels. The perfect sweet spot is about 1 inch to 1.5 inches off the ground with the teeth on level ground. For maintenance every day for the chains, we'll want to spray on some petroleum-based lubricant on 3 chains, or actually 4, excuse me, on this side, and we'll want to get 1 on the other side. So you got your main chain that's going up and down, feeding the top roller that powers your belts on top. The secondary one on the bottom, feeding your power to your belts on the bottom drive. And then on the inside of that shaft, you have another belt that's going down, and it's feeding your stuffer roller. Then of course, coming back from the other side, underneath the shield at the very bottom, you have a chain that is powering your pickup teeth in between the bands on the pickup. You'll notice on here, both drive chains for the belts have adjusters. Down here, every so often, if you start to see a little bit of slop in here, you'll just take this nut loose, push it down, retighten. These here, you take these 3 bolts loose here, and you can slide it to give you, again, that tension. You don't need it super snug, just so it isn't flopping around. In the unlikeliness that you would get stuck or end up needing to pull somebody else out, we have included on this model a heavy-duty log chain. You'll be able to tie onto the front around the axle, or if absolutely, I don't like it, but absolutely necessary, if you can't pull it out forward, you could wrap around the axle real tight up against the frame on the rear of the baler and give yourself a pull out to the rear. On the right side of the baler, you'll notice just 1 chain transferring power from one shaft to the other. Like on the other side, make sure we oil these once a day. On the right side of the baler, inside the gull-wing door, you're going to notice a diagram here. This is giving you an example and a good reference on your long and short belts. This baler has 8 belts. You've got the long belts that are obviously just a tiny bit longer, go on the outside of one of the rollers. Then you've got 4 short belts which go on the inside. The reason for this is to keep the material from building up a bale, quote unquote, on the inside or the wrong side of the belts. It feeds the product that gets between the belts out right on top of the floating pickup, thus allowing the product to wisely fall right on top of the rin row and go back in the baler for a second time. On the left, you'll notice the diagram of the belts, like we talked about earlier. The about 2 foot or 2.5 by 1 foot triangle is right in the center, just a little bit up and a 4 of the wheel, and that's where the bale actually gets made. The accelerator is right up against that bottom roller, which you can see right above the wheel, the tire, and that bale starts to go, as we would look at it, in a clockwise position. So it starts to turn, and as the bale continues to build, you see in a bottom to top sweeping motion, those 2 rollers are connected to a connecting piece of steel on a tube, and they're in with tension, and as it builds, those go up and out of the way, allowing the belts to now gain a whole lot more distance between them, allowing you to build a bale all the way up to 72 inches. On the right side of the baler, inside the shield, you'll see a diagram for twine. A few of our customers or family farmers in need use twine, and as you see in the diagram, you have twine containment racks on each side of the baler, right and left. The green is on the right, the red is on the left side of the baler. As you can see the diagram, you start with the roll of twine, number 1 on top, 2, and then 3 to the right and 4 directly under 2, as you can see in this big case here on the side. Then on the right side, or the left side, excuse me, you have the exact same pattern. On your fine twine rack, you'll notice 1, 2, 4, and 3. You end up tying those all together, just like the diagram shows. That way you only need to thread the process one time when you start serving the family farmer. So as you can see by the diagram and such, it feeds off of roll number 1 for the twine, all the way through each one of these eyelets, onto the outside of the machine, through the pressure hold right here, down onto the wheel, drops down here in front of the baler through the eyelets, just like the diagram here describes. On the right you've got the green, on the left you've got the red, and it feeds into the swing arm that actually feeds the baler of twine. So the swing arm is mounted in the center on an actuator. It swings back and forth, depends how many times you choose, however many times the farmer would like the bale wrap, depending on the conditions and the product. And so you're looking at the spacing. You can adjust for pins on the other side here of anything from 1 inch spacing all the way to 6 inches on how much spacing in between each wrap as it goes around. And that swing arm will go back and forth, and again at the end it cuts it off, and then the twine stops, but it's held in place on the swing arm to engage for the next bale. The net wrap is fed in through the back into the machine. The twine is fed into the front and actually enters in just as the product would between the stuffer roller and your accelerator. Also on the right side of the baler, right above the pressure gauge, you're going to find this iron gauge, just kind of giving you an indication of where you are in the process of building the bale. Obviously right now the chamber is empty, so it's all the way up. Now as you start to build up to 72 inches or wherever your family farmer would like it, it will continue to come down up to the red. You obviously want to keep it out of the red. That means you're building too big of a bale. If you do that, you're going to end up stopping the belts, which will end up stretching them, and you're going to end up having to kick out a bale that will not wrap. You cannot put twine or net wrap on a bale once you've made it too big, because there's no way for the machine to turn the belts when they're stretched beyond capacity, and you have to turn the bale as you're applying both a net wrap or your twine. So you're not going to per se wreck anything. It's going to be hard on the belts, and you're going to create a lot of work for yourself because you're going to have to be kicking the bale apart and re-baling it. So you normally don't hardly watch this, but it is a good reference if the computer goes down or if you cannot watch it at the current time on the computer. We'll go through that in the cab. That's what you're constantly watching for whatever size on the bale. But this is a backup in case you have a failure on the monitor. In order to provide a professional service to our family farmers and have a nice, even, tight, flat bale, you're going to be wanting to watch the monitor the entire time and weave back and forth through the rin row in order to get your product in on the right and left side of the bale. On the baler, on the back, you'll notice potentiometers that are up here on the belts. These little rollers are what cause the baler to know on the screen which side is low and which side is high. So these bale shape sensors, right here you'll see the springs with the little silver ball bearing rollers, they sense the tension on the belts. And so when one is lower than the other, as the bale begins from that tiny triangle base all the way up to as much as 72 inches, it is testing how much pressure and allowing you to know which side side you need to drive. So it's very self-explanatory. When you're in the cab, you're going to see the two lines. Whichever one is low is which side you need to drive on. Now you don't need to drive all the way to the edge, because as we saw earlier on the Mega Wide, you've got about a foot, a little over, of space where it's not entering the chamber, it's just getting augered in. So as long as you're near the side of the pickup, whichever side is showing low on your bar graph as it's going up and down and counting up your inches for you, that is what's doing it. It's the pressure sensors on here on the very outside of the bale. And you want to make sure when you get right to the end, you leave with them within a couple of each other. That leads to a nice round and firm flat bale. You also, while you're doing it, I've heard horror stories of guys riding for a long time on one side, let's say, and having no line and a whole bunch on one, and then just switching over and doing the opposite, and then at the end they try to level it out. The problem with this is that you actually end up making two separate round bales. The fact of weaving back and forth over your rinrow as those lines on the graph on the monitor go up and down, that actually cross stitches your bale, so you have them weaving much like a hose reel all the way back and forth, locking them together. What you'll find if you ride on one side and then ride on the other, kick the bale out, and it could potentially fall in half, because you've basically made two side-by-side round bales. So make sure you're weaving, not drastically, but just gently back and forth over the rinrow. The only exception to this is if your rinrow happens to be exactly the same width as your pickup, well then your lines are going to pretty much stay close, and you have to vary only a little bit to allow keeping the evenness. Onto the net wrap portion. At the rear of the baler, you'll notice a little latch here. Firmly pull down. Air shock assist pulls it open. Have the handy diagram up top. Got your spare roll and the actual roll of net wrap that is feeding into the baler to wrap your bales. In order to load more net wrap, you just pull this down, lift up one side, catch it here on the edge, grab the other side, lift it on in. And from there, if this one wasn't here, you'd grab the corner, set it up in, do the same on the other side. This allows for strong arm, but one-man operation if you need to get new net wrap in. The net wrap goes in just as the diagram shows. This diagram is very handy. I would follow it religiously every time, and the way you have it laid in here is very important. The net wrap needs to be fed a certain way. It needs to be turning so that it's feeding from the top, going between the roll and the back of the baler. The diagram clearly shows, as you look at it from the left side of the machine, it would be turning counterclockwise. As it feeds down, you'll notice underneath here, it's coming along the rubber roller, in between there, and being fed into the steel roller. Underneath here, you have a guard, you have a piece of steel, and you have the knife. This is what cuts the net wrap in between bales. When the net wrap is engaged, you'll notice underneath here, it actually is going between these two rollers, past the knife because it opens up with the angle iron, and it's going in between here on the net wrap rack. And this rack here is on the inside, so it goes into the bale, but it feeds all the way down to the center of the baler and then comes in underneath. Like we talked earlier, the twine is fed through the front. The net wrap is fed in through the rear and goes into the chamber, and again you can select one, which I wouldn't recommend. I would always recommend at least 2 to 3.5 wraps on every bale, and that again is adjustable on the screen in the cab. And it feeds in and goes up in and builds a bale, and when it gets to a certain amount of revolutions kept track on the side monitor, it automatically drops the angle iron onto the knife and stops this rubber powered roller, and that all happens simultaneously, cutting it and allowing the last of the net wrap to feed into the bale and stopping the net wrap from rolling, which is powered on the bottom side from this roller. At the very right rear corner of the baler, you have a key onto a little latch, open up the channel. Right behind here is an actuator. This actuator is what powers both the net wrap entering and the knife to cut it off. In one action, this comes out, powering a belt on the other side, engaging the net wrap on the rubber roller, pulling the angle iron up out of the way and allowing the net wrap to feed between the rubber and the steel roller onto the net wrap rack into the baler. Once you're done, the amount 2, 3.5, however you have it set in the cab, the actuator comes back in, but simultaneously stopping the roller from turning and cutting your net wrap to finish off the net wrap into the baler. John Deere has wisely placed a rack in the back for the second roll of net wrap. Make sure once you place it up on the rack that you've got the straps tightly holding it in place and that none of the net wrap is falling down, allowing it to start to feed in. You're going to end up wrapping with 2 rolls and cause all kinds of issues. Obviously your power takeoff is spinning at a high rate of speed. Do not get anywhere near it once the machine is operating. As this decal so very eloquently explains, you never want to try to unplug the machine while it's running for obvious reasons. If you go in there, you are never coming back out. So please don't take any chances. Turn the machine off and then unplug it if in the rare chance it would start to plug up or something run afoul. On both sides, you're going to find some chains, much more on the left side, but just one on the right. You'll obviously want to keep your hands clear and be very careful to keep any loose articles or clothing away from it. When you're oiling the chains, I would recommend just spraying them down while it's standing still. I understand a lot of people want to have them moving and working and all that. If you choose to do it with it running, make sure you stay a long ways away and do not get yourself caught in the chain or the sprocket. When loading net wrap, you'll want to make sure the machine is entirely off and no one accidentally presses the net wrap button, which will engage the net wrap into the roller, as you see on the left there, pinching your fingers. Then to the right and then on the side, you'll notice the actuator and the opening in there where it opens up between the piece of angle iron and the blade. You'll obviously want to keep your hands far away from that, and again, as long as the machine is turned off, there's no chance of somebody accidentally pressing the net wrap button, thus taking all risk out. Before doing any kind of maintenance on the rear of the baler, once you have the lid, the door open, you're going to want to make sure you engage the lock. On the left side of the baler, you're going to have a lock, which locks the cylinders in order to be able to work once you've opened the rear door on the baler. Move it from the unlocked position up and over into the lock position. This is a manual lock, disabling any flow of hydraulic fluid onto the rear and the cylinders. Now it is safe to go under and do any kind of maintenance work, such as removing plugs or changing out or working on any maintenance issues. There are no grease zerks in here, so there is no regular maintenance and really no other reason to be back here other than a plug or some other issue going on with the baler. This is a view from the back of the baler with the back door all the way open. As you can see in here, we've got the stuffer roller and we have the accelerator. Up in front are your pickup teeth on the pickup head. As the product flows in here, these shark-like fins feed the product in, and this area right in here is where the bale starts to get formed. And as the bale starts to turn, the stuffer roller turns counter to your accelerator and it creates the bale inside here as these belts are together on the inside. Inside Command Central in the 6175R, you obviously find steering wheel. You have your shuttle shift. This all adjusts with a lever down here on the floor. Pull it out and towards you. You have a shuttle shift, forward, reverse, neutral. Inside the cab of the 6175R, you've got a power shift. You've got A, B, C, and D over here on the right. Obviously in park before you ever mount or dismount. Take it out of park, move it up, slide it over, and you can select A up front, B down back, C, D, or E. You'll notice on the shifter you have an electronic clutch button. This top button here acts as your clutch, just the same as your foot clutch. and that'll allow you to engage A, B, C, D, and E. A is for going to slow and all the way up into E. E is only to be used during the road. Usually you're going to be operating in the field in C or D. Return to park, slide all the way over to the right, down, and over into the notch. Your throttle is just to the right of the shifter, full and soft, rabbit and turtle. Your power takeoff is the standard John Deere push down, rock forward, engage. To disengage, just flip it straight back. The 3-point has been disabled for reasons to save our PTO and for safety. The 3-point is no longer operable. Over here you've got SCV number 1, number 2, 3, and 4 are not used. Number 1 opens and closes the door. Number 2 is what you use to raise and lower your pickup. For the 6000R series, they have a quad shift, or now it's actually a 5-gear shift, a shuttle, the clutches, electronic, both on the floor and on the shifter. So when you first step into the cab, you'll obviously turn the key on the right side of the steering column, press in the clutch on the floor, or you can press on the electronic clutch on the very top of the gear shifter, slide it out of park, up and over. You can select A all the way over through E. Obviously, A is slow, E is fast. Once you select the gear, such as getting out on the road, and we're going to be taking off, you go into D. With your foot still on the clutch down there, you can rock your shuttle shift into forward. Now, you can also do this without using the clutch. They've made these 6000s where you can just take the shuttle and engage it. It will electronically engage the clutch, and away you go. So you have a shuttle shift for going forward, reverse, neutral. You have a gear selector. And then within each of the gears, so A through E, you have 4 power shift positions. You have 3 different buttons for selecting which gear. Within each of the gears, A through E, you have 4 gears that are power shift. You can shift up or down through the 2 buttons on the shifter. You can shift up or down right below the 3-point control, or on the joystick for the loader, up or down. The loader up is back, down is 4. To rock the loader over and up is down towards your knee, and to set the forks or the boil spear in the down position over to the right. For the baler, you've got SCV number 1, which lowers and opens and closes your gate on the rear, ejecting the bale once you're done wrapping. And then you've got SCV number 2, which is what lowers and raises your pickup on the floating pickup mega wide. Once you shift the gear shifter out of park, you'll notice it goes to an N there in orange. Select whichever gear, A through E. Then on the left of the steering wheel here, you have your shuttle. That indicates the shuttle is engaged for forward movement, neutral, and reverse. Once you move out of gear with your gear selector, you'll notice the neutral disappears. For power shift, you'll notice the 1 right below the 0 on the RPM. As I shift up, changes 2, 3, 4. That tells you in each A through E, your power shift position 1 through 4. On the bottom left, you'll notice the icon indicating that the front wheel assist is on auto, which is the preferred method. On the top right, you have the temperature gauge. On the top left, you have the fuel gauge all the way to the left. You have your diesel exhaust fluid gauge on the inside right up against the tachometer. You have the tach right there on the left, and you have your miles per hour on the right. On the right side of the cab, you have an LCD display for all the operations within the tractor. It's a touch screen. You want to change any options, you can just touch on it. It'll bring up, you can go ahead and play with it and change your options. It gives you everything from your air conditioner to RPMs, Baler speed, all that kind of stuff. On the right here, you've got all these soft keys. Some of these are for navigating through the touch screen if the touch screen isn't working or you prefer to use the buttons. You've got a bunch of them for lights, music. You have your temperature, up, down, your fan speed. You have some flashers here for going down the road. With the bottom right is your beacon. Anytime you're going down the road, you're going to want to engage the flasher and the beacon for maximum safety. When it comes time at night, you've got field light option 1, field light option number 2. You'll have to turn the lights on by turning them on the steering wheel. On the right side of the instrument panel, right below the steering wheel, you have 3 options. You've got park for just your marker lights on for parking in the field or on the side of the road. You have your going down the road lights, and all the way to the right is your field lights. On the right, your soft keys here, you've got a cylinder lock. You have front wheel assist always on or in auto. We prefer to leave it in auto, that way when you need it, it's there, otherwise it's not wearing on the parts. And then leave the differential lock in auto as well to give you maximum traction in any kind of sticky situation. On the loader joystick, you've got unlocked and locked. Right now it's in the unlocked position. By taking this knob, sliding it over into the lock position, you are now safe to work under and around for blowing out the air filters, checking the oil and such. On the right front corner of the cab, you'll notice the bale monitor. This is what we're going to be spending most of our time while we're baling and to adjust and set up anything from in the cab. Right below John Deere, you have the on-off switch. Right below that, you have the selector between Twine and net wrap. The top left is Twine, bottom checkered pattern on the right is your net wrap. Below that, you have extend and retract. That is the extend and retract for your Twine, and the only time you're going to end up using that is doing maintenance or for the original thread. If you can't thread in your Twine, you can extend or retract in order to make it more ergonomical to be able to thread in your Twine. Up here you have the soft car button. That gives you the option of making the center area soft and the rest of the bale at a higher pressure. The reason this comes in is if you have real wet conditions you need to bale, you can keep the soft middle so it doesn't spoil and a little bit firmer to get more tonnage around the outside. Below that you have the wrap button for either net wrap or Twine. If you're at the end of serving a family farmer, you want to kick out the baby bale that's still in the chamber, you can select the wrap button while the PTO is running. It will wrap the Twine or the net wrap, and then you can go through the ejection process. This middle here on the top, this is for Twine only, and this tells the machine how many times you want the Twine to wrap on the edges, so it kind of loops and laps over itself in order to provide a good firm base on the edge. Right to the right, you have the same thing for the opposite left side of the bale as you sit in the tractor. Below the one for the right side, you have the bale size. Now this is for both net wrap and Twine, and that gives you the option for up to 72 inches on your bale size. You can run them down, I believe, as low as 20 some inches. I don't know who would, but you can run them anywhere in the 40s, 50s, and 60s up to 72 inches. However, I recommend running no higher than 68 inches. That way, when you get a little bit of extra in the chamber, you don't run the risk of wrecking the belts or plugging the baler by oversizing the bale. So my brother and I both run only at 68. That way you prevent that from happening. To the right of the bale selection size, you have how many wraps you want to put on the edge and how close to the edge with Twine. So that's for Twine only, how many wraps on the edge and how close to the edge. Then over to the top right, you have a selection of how many revolutions or how many wraps or Twine rings you want to run on the bale. The top is for net wrap, bottom is for Twine. You use the same soft key and it allows you to adjust for the wraps. We again recommend between 2 to 3.5. The 1, 2, 3 button gives you the total for the machine and the total for that family farmer. To reset, you just hold the button in and it'll reset to 0 when you get to a new family farm. The plus minus is for all the adjustments on any of the other. You'll notice gate closed, near full, wrapping started, eject, variable core, alarm, gate open, oversize, net wrap, low voltage, and bale size / counter. Each one of those will show up as an icon when the corresponding action is taking place. As the baler gets to the end here, we got it set for 68 inches on your bale size. You can go up to 72. At 63.5, 64, it's going to come in with a beep letting you know that you're 5 inches from your full size. There's your beep, and up there it has the near full icon. You want to listen very intently for this beep. Keep the radio down. Remember, when you're on your phone, you hear that beep, it's time to start slowing down. For this tutorial, we're going slower than what you normally go. I mean, you know, we're sometimes bailing 10 miles an hour if the fields are smooth and you're doing a good job picking up. However, in order to keep things smooth here for the shoot, we're going pretty slow, but as you notice, it keeps adding up, and that's inches in the bottom right corner down there. And once we get up to 68, and just a touch past 68, it's going to indicate that it's going to start wrapping. And at that point, you need to be stopped. So generally, you know, you'll be moving at whatever speed, 6, 10, whatever, 8 miles an hour. And when you hear the beep beep, you want to start downshifting and get prepared. Foot on the clutch, ready to stop to allow the net wrap to take place. Once you're stopped, it'll automatically net wrap. You're going to see the net wrap started on the icon there in the center left, and it's going to go ahead and automatically net wrap or twine the bale. It does that while the PTO is engaged, of course, and you are stopped. For obvious reasons, you need to be stopped because the net wrap and the twine both use the belts and the chamber to wrap the bale, same as what the product is entering the chamber. So it's impossible to be doing both at the same time. You'll end up with net wrap wound up inside the bales, inside the actual product as it's going round and round. So it's very important that as you hit 68 or whatever, some farmers like them smaller, 50-inch bales. Most common though is 64 to 68 inches, and that, like I was saying on the other video, you can change that by going down here. It tells you how many wraps. And so you'll do whatever the farmer, if you're helping, desires. Once we get here to 68, I'll go through the process here and show you. And as you see here, we've skipped ahead to 67.5 and now 68. Boom! As soon as that started wrapping, you want to be coming to a complete stop by the time this little icon down here comes into place. So as a goal, you want to be stopped as soon as the beep ends. And that prevents any more product from coming in and wrapping inside the net wrap. Now you have a nice, clean, professional wrap, and it doesn't have a chance of tearing because the layers of net wrap aren't interlocked fine. As you see now, it has the eject icon up the bottom left corner there. Once you see the eject icon and you notice the little cut mark for the net wrap disappeared, now what we're going to do is take SCV number 1. I'm going to click it back one time. So one time. Now you'll notice over here it says gate open. It gives me a total of the amount of bales for the particular family farmer or field. And now it's telling me max bale size is 75. It's just recalibrating the actuometers on the bale shape size meters on the side. So it's completely open. I felt the bump as the bale kicker has kicked the bale through the chain on the gate. Now I'll take SCV number 1 and I will click it one time all the way ahead. To the click, you'll feel it in the tractor, the hydraulics, and then a boom, and it'll kind of shake the entire cab. Now, like right here, we notice here, this is a good example. You have stop, the alarm on the top right with the gate open. This means that there must be a piece of material or the bale didn't kick out of the way or anything that's hindering the gate and the pins fully engaging. So the first thing you want to do is go back to SCV number 1. Just click it all the way up and cycle it one more time. This gives a chance to kick the bale one more time and give it a chance to roll it out of the way. Once you felt the bump when the gate and the kicker's all the way up, click it down and we'll give her a try again and make sure it shuts all the way. Okay, at this point now I'm going to open it back up and I'm going to go take a look at the rear to make sure we don't have anything filling the area there where the gate, like product accidentally spit over top of the accelerator. Well, what do you know? Got some debris stuck in the corners. Right down on the side here is where the bale locks for the door locks come down in. You see debris is falling down behind the cylinder in there. So of course, safety first, we're going to put it to the lock position to prevent the cylinders from accidentally closing. You go in here and you'll notice right up in here is where the pins that are up on the door need to come in. There's pinholes on both sides. If those aren't fully engaged, you're going to get that stop sign in the cab alerting you to not a full chamber. if you go ahead and bale, even with the stop sign on there, you're going to end up, as the bale fills, it's going to push the door open on you, and you're going to have a big mess. You're just going to have to rebale the bale. So never attempt to continue baling as long as that stop and the door open signal or insignia on the top right is showing. Make sure you come back here, clean it out. So all it requires after the safety's on is just digging out the material in here to allow the safety door latch to come on in and lock. And I'll check this side as well. You see here, this side here hasn't had any issue. It's all still built up. So this is just build up of what, you know, spins off the bales as it goes around and around. I'm just going to clean this out so that next couple bales it doesn't do it on me again. Just get it all cleaned out, keep that open. After returning the safety at the rear to the on position, back in the cab, SCV number 1 all the way ahead. After cleaning the debris out, you'll notice it'll go from gate open to gate closed at the very top left corner. Now, you'll be normally in C range, your foot on the clutch, ready to go, back down to gear shift number 1 here. So it's number 1 showing up here under your tachometer. Normally you run your RPM still up here while you're kicking the bale out, kicking it in. And here we go. You'll notice as we take off here that you're going to notice nothing but lines here. Because the chamber where the bales are made is about 1 foot by 1.5 foot tall in a triangular shape, it cannot sense bale size until we build it to about 22 inches in diameter. At 22, these lines are going to transform into 22, and then they're going to start the process all over again of building up all the way to 68 or whatever you predetermine with the farmer. And as it does, of course, you'll hear that beep. There we go, 22.5, and it's building up. If you ever want to know going through the field how many bales you've baled for a particular farmer, hit it once, that'll give you the bales for the farmer you're using or the field, and then on the second time that gives you total machine. You cannot reset total machine bales, but you can, however, reset your total bales by the farmer. Just hold the minus key down until it goes to complete zeros. Now again, we're at 31.5. That's what this number is for your bale size. If you want to switch between net wrap, you want to switch net wrap or twine on how many revolutions or how many wraps, you just press the button up and down for minus. Right now we're at 2.5 wraps on the net wrap. This here is how many on the edge, and this is for twine. We're not using that, so I can't really show you the icons. And then over here, this is the bale size. So again, we're at 68. So we move it up or down, however many, up into 72 inches. It max out at 72 because this is a 5 foot by 6 foot round baler. So turn her down here to 68 as requested by our family farmer we're helping. If I was done and ready to go to the next family, and I'm at 31.5, anything bigger than a 22, I can go ahead and press wrap, and that will automatically give me the wrapping started icon up here and wrap the little mini baby bale.